I am not an atheist, but today I'm going to recommend a book by an atheist author for an atheist audience. And as you'll see, the rest of us can enjoy it as well, or at least appreciate it for what it is. The book is called Religion for Atheists by Alain de Botton, and it does something that you don't see many authors doing these days, especially. It is a book by an atheist. The author's an atheist, and he writes a book about religion where he extracts from religious practices, religious traditions, and takes from them things that the secular world can learn from the religious community. And so that's something that's pretty amazing. It's kind of like a far-left Democrat writing a book about the things that Democrats can learn from conservatives. It's not something you see every day. And it's, I think, a step in the right direction. If we are to understand each other, if we are to have some kind of constructive dialogue with people with whom we disagree, ideologically or otherwise, it's important to first find common ground and even admit that we can learn from one another, despite having different views on politics or religion or whatever it is. And so the author of Religion for Atheists does just that. One example from the book, he points out, he talks about the most holy day of the Jewish tradition, Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement. And this is a day where in Jewish tradition, this is kind of like Easter for the Christian world, right? Everybody who considers themselves a Christian, they might not go to church every Sunday or many days many weekends in the year, but when it comes to Easter, Christmas, right? Everybody goes. So Yom Kippur is kind of like that. If you're not of the Jewish tradition, I'll explain it a little bit. And so it's the holiest day of the year. In going back to the time where we talk about Old Testament events, the Day of Atonement was a day when the sins of Israel were forgiven. In other words, the Jewish people's, their sins, they were cleansed, right? They were transferred to the tabernacle through the practice of sacrifice and ritual, as well as the temple. And what would happen was the high priest would take part in a ritual sacrifice ceremony. He would go into the Holy of Holy areas of the temple or the tabernacle where the presence of God existed at that time, above the Ark of the Covenant, which we've all heard of. And he would intercede on behalf of the people of Israel. And another part of it would be confessing the sins of Israel, of the people, onto a goat that is then led out into the wilderness. And that's where we get the term scapegoat. So the sins are transferred onto the goat, and the goat is led off into the wilderness. And there's sacrifice, intercession, and forgiveness of sin. But as part of leading up to that holiday, the Jewish tradition, one of the things they do is they make amends with those who have wronged them, right? And they forgive and are forgiven, right? So you can imagine a day when everyone who's wronged you, you call them up or go see them, and you forgive them for the things they've done to you. And if you've done somebody wrong, you ask for forgiveness, right? So there's great cathartic value in that, and the author of the book notices that, right? And so imagine if there was a secular day when the people of the world forgave one another. Can you imagine the cathartic value of that? The mental health value in today's world where anxiety, stress, right, is at an all-time high, perhaps any time when we should be comfortable, right? We are okay. And yet there is anxiety and stress around the world. So we can take this tradition that the Jews have, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and we can extract from that, if you're in the secular world, this tradition of forgiving. You don't have to be religious to understand the value of forgiveness, repairing relationships. Imagine a day when the whole world were to call up those people that have wronged them and, they forgive them. So you call up a family member, parent, son, daughter, and say, I know we had our differences and we had some issues. We haven't been talking this year, and I just want to put it behind us. I forgive you, or I want to ask for forgiveness, right? Repairing relationships like that with family and friends. Imagine if there was a day when the whole world forgave each other. Cathartic value, right? Extremely amazing thing that could happen if the secular world took the example from the Jewish tradition of Yom Kippur, where they do that. Of course, the same Day of Atonement points in the Christian world to the Christ that would come, right? And of course, Christianity, very much centered on forgiveness. So we have Christianity, the Jewish religion, right, both focusing on forgiveness, those who have wronged you. And there's no reason that the secular world can't do the same thing. And they could extract from that the value that attracts a lot of people to both religions, especially Christianity, when it comes to forgiveness. So that's one of the things that the author points out. Talks about, there's 10 chapters in the book, talks about education. One of the things that I appreciated from the book was the understanding of how important education is for religious institutions. Of course, many religious institutions include the education systems that are greatly organized and that are valued within their individual cultures. And a part of that pointed out how religious people, when they read, study their corpus, their canon, the work that they use from which they derive the faith, what they believe in. For example, the Jews and the Christians use the Bible, right? Christians would use the New Testament as well. Practitioners of Islam would use the Quran, right? And these are the most memorized works of literature in the world. The Quran, I believe, is considered the most memorized piece of work in human history. And if you've met people that are Christian or Muslim, you know that they memorize portions of the Bible, right? If you're a Christian, you memorize verses or chapters. And of course, part of the tradition of the Quran in Islam is memorizing large portions of it, right? Every day. People that are greatly devoted, religious individuals, they'll get up in the morning, read the Bible, or the Quran, or whatever work they subscribe to, and they'll learn it. They'll learn it inside and out, backwards and forwards, right? And so what would happen if the secular world took this devotion to study and applied it? You know, we often read books and we'll read it once through and we think we get the idea, we think we understand it, and then we give the book away or put it on the shelf and never open it again. And then when we're asked what the book is about, you give them kind of a 1 or 2 sentence summary, a lot of times just repeating the subtitle. Because we read a book once through and we don't remember it all as much as we thought. We think we read it and then we know it, right? But the truth is, usually people can't give more than a couple sentences about what they read, which is unusual. But if you put the practice of study and devotion into what you're learning, such as in reading a book, in the same way that a religious person puts into studying their religious canon, then imagine how much better you can learn, how much more information you can glean, understanding of a subject. So instead of just reading the book once, you go over it again, you read chapters over, read the whole book 2, 3 times, memorize portions of it, right? And you can read another book and put just as much devotion into that study as a religious person might, right? And so that's something that the secular world can take from the religious, according to Alain de Botton, Religion for Atheists. A couple other chapters talks about art, architecture, right? Some of the most beautiful buildings in the world are from religious institutions, right? One of the most beautiful buildings in the world are, in fact, cathedrals, churches, right? It's not just a cube building with right angles, white paint. Some of these old buildings put great emphasis on the aesthetics, on the look, so that when you enter the building, you not only are going there for a religious purpose, but you feel a duty of reverence for the building itself is a work of art. And you seem like sacrilege to behave in unholy ways. I don't know, whatever you want to say. But you go into the building and you feel the reverence, right? There's beautiful buildings, stained glass, detailed stained glass art, ornate arches, right? Lots of art on the walls, statues. That's inside and out. If you ever go to Vatican City, I've never been there, but of course I've seen pictures of the architecture there. Some emphasis is put on government buildings, secular buildings like that. A lot of them based on Roman and Greek architecture. And so you do see that. But imagine if other secular institutions put as much emphasis on their architecture, on their design of the buildings, as many of these religious institutions, right? Due to their temples or churches, cathedrals. We'd have a real beautiful city. You can imagine a whole downtown of buildings, just that focus a great deal on the aesthetics, that had beautiful architecture all throughout. You could have a whole city. It'd be beautiful. It's amazing. You don't see that as much anymore. But the devoted religious institutions will often will set up buildings with this in mind. So not just cube with right angles and white paint. Same with art. Some of the most beautiful pieces of art ever created have a religious theme. Where would we be without the paintings of Da Vinci, Caravaggio, or the beautiful statues of Bernini, right? That's stuff you see every day. Statues and art like that were used a long time ago. You know, right now we have commercials, right? I have billboards, propaganda that politicians might use, right? But back in the day, they didn't do that, but they would put up statues, right? Instead of these billboards, they'd put up statues around the city, right, as propaganda. And now we consider it beautiful art. But I don't think we'd consider any of the political ads, billboards, things we see like that as art today. But imagine if modern art, you know, now we have modern art, abstract art. You know, it's nice. It's its own kind of art, but compares. It's nothing compared to the beautiful art that existed long ago, when it was devoted to depicting a powerful scene from the Bible or elsewhere, to depict a religious principle, especially during the Baroque. Right, we get a lot of beautiful art from back then. So nowadays, with abstract modern art, you might get a painting, canvas that just has two colors on it, you know, and it'll sell for, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, right? Hunter Biden painting will sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But we don't have the emphasis as much on the beauty that was, and the detail that was put into many of the most famous of the religious works. So anyway, there's 10 chapters in the book. Talks about art, education, institutions, kindness, and other things that the secular world can learn from the religious minded. And the reason I appreciate it is because it is such a rare thing these days in books, when everything has an agenda, largely a political agenda. You know, you don't see Democrats speaking about what they can learn from conservatives, right? On occasion, you do see the other way around, but not typically. And even these days, especially coming from the far left these days, debate is discouraged. And you would certainly not see people trying to learn from one another, which is unfortunate. Because if you cannot fully articulate your opponent's point of view, then you're not prepared to participate in any sort of debate on the subject. Because you're only getting one side of it, you only know one side of it, right? If you want to seek truth, you want to know both sides, and if you want any progress, any progress in making sense of the world, especially in government, in accomplishing anything, you're going to have to find common ground. That's not common practice today. But we can take the example of Alain de Botton in Religion for Atheists, by finding the things that we can extract from our opponents or those with whom we disagree, and finding value even with these people with whom we disagree. Trying to take things that we can learn from those with whom we disagree. It's something important that we need these days. And so I recommend the book, Religion for Atheists. Typically, when you see books by atheists about religion, it's rather militant, right? It's going to be, this is why religion is bad. And it gives examples throughout history of why religion is bad for humans. all the examples, right? And it gives no indication of anything positive coming out of religion, right? Despite the good that it does for many people around the world every single day. So if you focus only on the bad things, you're only going to view those things as bad. If we try to learn from those with whom we disagree, again, then we'll be a step closer to understanding each other and making some real progress. So that's the book, Religion for Atheists by Alain de Botton. Thought I'd share that with you guys. It's something I appreciate. If you're watching to the end of this video, thanks for watching. Please share it if you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, give it a thumbs up, and leave any questions or comments in the comment section. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out. Hit the notification bell, and you'll get updates each time I upload a new video. Until next time, I'm Edgar Ortega, handsome blind guy, and I'll see you, or you'll see me in a future video.